We're here to talk through the Snake Pit X puzzle by Joseph Howard called Noughts and Crosses for these tic-tac-toe games that are all draw games with 5 X's, 4 O's. One thing that the tic-tac-toe games are probably going to do is really have constraints around these snakes as they grow out. So one example is they'll limit where you can have endpoints of these things. So where the 5 could sometimes end on the cell, it can't when there's an X there. It can end on the circle and it can end over here. So from a checkerboard thinking, I've got 2 of the usual 3 cells this can end at. The 6 has to come down. Over on this side of the grid, probably the 8 is most constrained. So if it connected in these circles, like here, it's not going to have a lot of space to grow out to the top. So where there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 8 is going to have to come and escape around the circle here. It won't be large enough. That means the 7 also has a constraint like that. It can take 4 coming down, but joining to this wouldn't be enough. So this will have to be 5, 6, 7. If it did take any of those, that's now marking some of these edges in. Notice if this comes down and now finishes at this cell, so this would be 5, but now needs 6, 7, it would end on an invalid endpoint, so this is no good. This X still can't be an ending point, so I got to take at least one more cell, and that now looks like it's going to actually have the upper left and upper right moving together, which will be key. This 4 has to come over 1, and where I said that this 5 could initially end on the cell or the cell, because it can't end on an X, this is now with the 4, so this is always from the 5. That means this 4 can't take just one more, it's got to take these 2. It comes down here. For efficient packing, the 5 has to take this upper left group. To continue that story, we need to have efficient cornering around this cell, and that means we need efficient cornering around this X. And in marking all those in, the 6 can't finish to the left because it's not yet taken enough cells, so it's got to come down one more. These 3 could join here for a 4, but it's near another 4 snakes, so instead they come down and finish this 4. So mark these in. This 7 still doesn't really have any ability to come down here, so I could have just marked this edge sooner. That means this line we know for sure. Mark this edge in. Let's come to the bottom, and there are some interesting things in this lower left. First, we've got some obvious lines you can draw out. This 4 is going to have to end in one of these circles. This 3 will end here. One key thing is this 2 can't take this edge because it would put an endpoint on an X. And I can then do some things here. So this has 3 ways it can go, and look at it. If I took these 3 going to the left and to the bottom, this 3 can't finish. So I always have to take this end on this X. Another thing I'm seeing just around that neighborhood is like if this 4 comes up, that means the 3 comes up and that makes this an endpoint. So just playing around this tic-tac-toe constraint, there's a fair amount of limitation. The center X now has just 3 ways it can go because I've marked this edge below, but it can't take left and up, so it always has to take right. What will that mean? What that means is if this goes actually left and then the 3 comes up, I make another endpoint. So this for continuity is going to have to come up. This can't come down because that's not a valid shape, but it can't end there. So we get this pattern in. What will that do for us? Now this is intersecting the upper left of the grid. This 8 still needs to get at least 2 more cells. So it can't come down for 2. It's got to come to the right for 2. This X has 3 ways it can go, but can't be left and down, so always has to be right. This has 3 ways to go, but it can't be right and up, so it always has to take down. So we get some of these markings. I'm trying to see if there's some more limitations. I think some of them are going to come from cornering here. So if this line joins here, then this has to corner like so, but I've now made an 8-unit snake and I'm ending on an X shape. So this edge is no good. This has to come up. And marking those in puts this limitation in the grid. That same problem would happen if actually these joined, because then we would again form this required cornering, but the 8 snake would end too soon. So instead, this is not an edge. These aren't lines. These are distinct. Having this grow out, I now finish the 8 large snake, and that completes this 7 large snake out to here. Maybe some constraints now near the center. One thing I see to get started is actually this 6 and the circle are different clues. So this is either left, right, or up, down. If this is the left-right, then the 6 is growing into the space. It doesn't have enough room unless it comes up, but that's only 5 cells. So I can move this into the grid. And this, I guess, can be an endpoint, but doesn't look awesome if so. But I probably have to come back to this spot. I haven't done anything in the lower right, so my guess is there's got to be some stuff to do there. It will be useful. The 7 always has to take this cell. It could come up here or here, even just have this as an endpoint, but this will be as many as 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. If I don't take this cell, I can't get as many as 7. It's like if you know, say I don't take that cell, like this being an endpoint is going to cause an issue. So this always is a 7. And part of this 7 exactly. This 5 could now come to the right, or it could come up here. Those options both still look okay. This 6, though, looks more constrained. It can't come down, that's 5. It can't come here, that's 5. It needs to get as many as 6 cells away, so it's going to have to come through this channel. The 7 is going to come to the top. And so we're going to have this path for the snake. That 5, that 7, that 6 are now all on a collision path. So one thing you can't do is have this 5 just come over here too far. It actually can take just like this one cell, but we'll always have to come up. And it can't come to the right or it's going to close off here. So this has to come down for that valid X to not be an end of a snake. The 4 is going to come over here. The 2 closes out, and this is now a 6 unit and growing snake over on the left. We can't have the 7 come up, so it's this will have to be part of the 7. It's going to have to keep growing, so it actually comes all the way to here. This will be the last to finish out the 6, and we've got this 3. 7 could come up or down, but there are probably some constraints if it goes down, so let's look at this. If this comes down to here, then the 3 is forced like this, but we also get this as a necessary cornering, and the 6 has nowhere to close, so that's causing a real issue. So the 7 is going to want to come up. We still have to make this whole corner work, so how are these 6s going to connect into one of these circles, and what will that leave behind? I think one thing we can see is that there are going to be some small count groups around this. So let's say the 6 came down to this. This snake is going to come down and over, or come down here, or potentially just be a 2. But these are all giving me 3s as options. And where there's already a 3 in here, I think one of the constraints we're going to work off of is that that is itself pretty limiting. If this 3 comes up here, maybe this is a key cell. Now look at this X. This X cannot be part of that 3, but whichever snake it grows into is going to be 3 cells large. So probably the key constraint is what I just found, is that in this corner, the 3 has to be shaped like this because of the pattern of the tic-tac-toe grid. And we're finding this at the end of the solve, but it was easily relevant earlier in the solve. That now means that this is only the 5th cell for the 7, and there's no way this is the last cell for the 7. So the 7 ends here or here. Notice as the 7 ends here, then this snake, which is 6 long, also ends here in a 7, and that's not going to work. So this is the end of the 7, and this snake has to be at least 2 longer so it doesn't end at 7 large. So we mark these in. The 5 comes straight across. Right now this is 8. This could be 2, but if we ended like this, then we put with the 6 in an endpoint on that cell. So this is not 8, this is 9 large. We need to get valid final packing here, and this X can't take just the left and up because that would make a 3 large snake near a 3 large snake, so it has to come over, came up here, make another 3 snakes, so this has to come here and here, and that leaves just enough for a 6-4 split. So this will be the finish of the puzzle as we mark it in. Really tough grid in different ways, but a really elegant use of the Noughts and Crosses theme to give different endpoints and breakpoints for snakes filling in. Some compact shapes at the start gave us where we got, for instance, this forced 5, which gave us this 4 coming down, gave us some corner around this shape. Some constraints around this cell, particularly just below the 2, gave us how the 4 and 3 worked, and this other group came in, which gave us this 8. We worked around the center and the big digits there, and also figured out how like these 7s got constrained. And so as a chip away, chip away, chip away, aha after aha after aha, But a really, really good puzzle from Joseph. So thanks for this puzzle, and hopefully you learned something through this video. We'll see you all again soon.